Welcome back. We are moving to workshop item number 3, discussion regarding real property acquisition. Dr. Weissong, you want to open us up and then give it to Mr. Rinaldi, Mr. Finley?
Thank you, Chairman and board members. This item is with regards to a pending real estate transaction that we want to give you an update on and seek your input regarding. And Mr. Rinaldi and Mr. Penley are both here, and they'll walk you through the status update.
Good afternoon, board. Dr. Weissong. Okay. Just to give you an overview of what the progress has been on the elementary school to be constructed in the Rye Ranch area. Back in March of 2023, the board approved the purchase agreement for that piece of property. Since that time, we've been working on the design, and we've been working with the county on getting the permitting. So there are certain aspects of the original agreement that need to be amended to accurately reflect the work that we have done to date. To keep in mind, we selected Harvard Jolly Architects back in October to do our prototype, and they're at about 75% design right now, so they're moving swiftly. In early December, we selected Skanska to construct this facility along with Artesian Lakes. So we're getting to the point right now that we're ready to move dirt, and the owner is actually moving dirt on site as we speak. So we're looking forward to getting this open in August of 2026, and in order to do that, we need to make sure that we get this amendment to you all in early February, the first board meeting in February, for review and hopefully approval. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mike Penley and talk specifically about some of the modifications to the original contract.
Good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Weissong. As Mr. Rinaldi said, we intend to bring an amendment to the Rye Ranch contract to you on the February 11th board meeting. I'm going to go through some of the primary aspects of that contract with you right now, and there's one that we're seeking direction from this board on. So the primary changes that will be in this amendment are as follows. There's a new section that modifies the outline of the property. The property is 18 acres. So the boundary of the property is going to change. The location's not changing. It's the same parcel. It's the same amount of acreage. We've just redefined the boundaries, and it's a better solution for the school district, for the design of our school, and a better solution for the developer or the seller as they develop their surrounding neighborhoods. So we see this as a win-win for both parties. There's a new section 5 that actually lowers the purchase price of the property. The original agreement said that the purchase price would be based on the average of 2 appraisals. That average was $2.6 million. The seller has agreed to reduce that price down to $2.2 million. So we feel that's definitely a win on behalf of the school district. There's another section that outlines the improvements that the seller will install to accommodate the school. Those are the roads and the utilities that have to be put in place, whether it's gas or electric or water or sewer. And it also outlines the timeframes associated with that, and those timeframes meet our requirements. In that same section, there's something very unique to this contract that we haven't done in other contracts. The seller has agreed to provide us with 145,000 cubic yards of dirt, and has agreed that under their current mass grading permit, which means they have approval from Manatee County and Swift Mud and all the agencies to move dirt right now. They have agreed to put the dirt on our site, to grade it, and do so at a cost of no more than $1.9 million. That seems like a lot of money. That is substantially less than what our own construction manager, Skanska, that Mr. Rinaldi just mentioned, substantially less than what they can do that same activity for. The other advantage is, as Mr. Rinaldi said, they're putting the dirt there right now. So when we get the site, which is going to be no later than March the 15th, the dirt's in place where we can start on the building pad almost immediately. So it gives us a jump on construction. It's a huge benefit to us. I mentioned the closing date being on or before March 15th. There's a requirement that the school board would execute forms to allow the seller to apply for a charitable donation. That's because they've reduced the price. They'll apply with the Department of Internal Revenue Service for that. There's a requirement that the fencing that is along the road frontage only be designed to be consistent with what's throughout the rest of their development, which is a 3-rail aluminum fence. The remaining parts of the school site would be our standard, which is a vinyl-clad chain link fence. We have submitted this type of fencing to our Chief of Security and Safety, and he has agreed that this fencing meets the requirements for our school safety. So the last section is what we're seeking direction from the school board on. The seller, who's represented here by Mr. Servin today, has requested that the school be named Rye Ranch Elementary School. Mr. Dye and I, in our negotiations, have consistently pushed back and said that does not follow the normal naming convention of the school board, and we did not want to take those rights away from the school board through a contract. The seller has said this is very important to us, and since we're having this workshop today, they asked that it be included and be a discussion so we can bring the contract to you on February 11th with that naming convention or without. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I think all those amendments are fantastic. I mean, to be able to have the dirt ready to roll, I mean, that time that saves us. And we know, one, we're about to be going through redistricting, et cetera, and obviously the amount of growth out there, we need this school ASAP, right? I would say for me personally, we've called it Rye Ranch from the beginning. I don't see what there. I don't have any issue calling it Rye Ranch. It's in the middle of Rye Preserve, and that everything around it is rye. So I don't particularly have an issue with it. I think for us it would potentially save some time. Us also getting feedback from public, etc. And it just makes sense where it's located, right? If they're asking for Gulf of America, it'd be different, right? Because it's not near.
Oh, I had to do that.
I figured I'd throw that one in there. So I'm absolutely for it. Whether it's in the contract or not, that's something that we can discuss. I don't think it needs to necessarily be in the contract, because I think if we all say yes, we're in it, let's do it. It is what it is, right?
And we could do a separate board item just identifying that item as well.
Correct,
as new
correct.
business, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm absolutely for. I mean, we've called it Rye Ranch. It's in the middle of Rye Preserve. It just makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally support it too. My only concern is, are we allowed to do this by policy? Like, does policy dictate that we have to go through a process? Or if we can do it this way, I'm fully supportive. I just want to make sure we can by policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either one, anyone can answer.
So under the policy for naming of a new school, you do not have to, it's just board's prerogative. Superintendent makes a recommendation and the board can adopt, but there's not the 6-month change and all that.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I'm good with it too.
Yeah, the board can take the liberty of naming. First of all, I want to say the 2.1 million drop in price, and then the dirt and the grading. I can't imagine. So you're telling me that all of the dirt that how many cubic yards you said that are being moved from the developed part of the site to the school site? is being done now, and the grading is being done by the developer for us?
It is.
Okay.
They're doing the mass grading.
Okay,
Skanska will, excuse me, Skanska will need to do the final grading,
okay,
but that's minimal work. Everything's going to be in place. So by March 15th, they will have the building pad area mass graded, filled and mass graded. The remaining part of the site will be filled and mass graded within 120 days. The work out on that part of the site comes later, so we're not concerned about that. The timeline's fantastic for us.
I'm totally supporting this, and because, one, anybody that's asked me about that region has said, can my kids go to North River Ranch? We haven't even named it, but they know the area. That's the area they want to move to and or whatever. And this is just personal conversations, not district. So I'm supportive of naming it North River Ranch.
No.
Right, sorry,
Ranch
sorry, I'm
Elementary.
thinking the one we did do. Because two, on Tuesday, didn't we just name one because of a community? We just did one, Tuesday, based on the region, and that's Copperstone. And that's why I'm more regional and or, wherever the development is going on, I like that idea. It just doesn't take away from the community, because the community, there's gonna be, it's impacting, are gonna be the community that lives around it. So I support this move, totally.
Anybody else comments?
Go ahead, Ms. Phelps.
While I don't have a problem with the name itself, I don't approve of basically giving developers naming rights, because this opens us up to any future development or any future landowner getting to choose the name for every future school. Because that's what we're relying on. There's no free land out there for us to take. It all already is owned by a couple of developers in the county. And if we go with giving naming rights now, I feel like that's going to be, become the norm. And I believe that takes it away from the board, it takes away from the community having input. I'm not objecting to the name. I just don't want to implement a change in the way we've always done things, so that we now have naming rights being given to developers. I'm not in favor of that at all.
Okay. Was that it? I'm sorry.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
So,
You want to say something? Go
we
ahead.
just wanted to say it's gonna be a different line item. It's not gonna be in the developer's contract. It's pretty much gonna be a different line item on the agenda. Am I correct in assuming that?
We can have it that way.
Right.
That's the purpose of the discussion, right?
Okay,
To,
I wanted to
so
make sure
to-
that, right.
for there to be signal regarding
I don't know how that's gonna
In the
go.
contract or not in the
what we,
contract.
right.
Right.
And if it's not in the contract, what do we want to do with the name? Seems like we're all okay with Rye Ranch. So the name part of it. Now it's just, do you want it in the contract or not in the contract?
I do not want it in the contract. I don't feel
Why
that
not?
is a good
That's where I
place to
spoke
put
for
it.
you. But, okay.
I did have a question about, and I can look to the attorneys. I mean, I kind of agree with what Ms. Felton is saying. I mean, if someone wants to build a scoreboard for us or something, well, we'll donate a scoreboard, but we want it to be called the Joe Smith scoreboard. But I would like us to make a Scout's honor commitment that when the item, at this point, that we will name it Rye River Ranch
Absolutely, yeah.
and have it as a separate line item outside of the contract. I do have some concerns about what Ms. Felton is talking about, but on the other hand, since we're not going to put it in the contract based on the discussion we'd had, I would like to just, Scout's honor, that's what we'll do when the line item comes
Yeah.
up. That's our intention. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm good.
Everybody else with that same token? There is some concern. There could be a developer that has a name and they want to fight for right, and it's a ludicrous name. I don't think that's the case in this particular instance. But I do see where it could potentially be a problem. But So I think, are you getting what you need from us? I think we all feel like it's not gonna be in the contract, but it's gonna be called Rye Ranch.
And if you don't mind, I just want to reiterate also that if naming it after, being in the middle of that region, naming it after a region, I prefer that for high schools. Personally, that, going on the record, high schools, regional, I like having our elementary schools named after educators. I like that they can have, it's Barbara Harvey Day. We're going to talk about Barbara Harvey today. All the kids get to learn her history, why she's important to the community. I like that all of our named schools are named after, and per our own rules, they're named after educators. I don't want anybody trying to come in, and this is why I'm looking at future, all right? I don't want anybody coming in saying, I want it named after me. You're gonna name the school after me. I'm not an educator. I own the land, or, I want to name it, President whoever, I want to make sure that we're sticking to our policy, that we don't, and this is what I'm also looking at, not just that our hands are tied in future naming. I also want to make sure that we're sticking to our own policy and not allowing somebody to come in and say, I'm going to name this school after me. So I just wanted to reiterate that and explain a little further my reasoning.
Heather, you raise really good points, and in spirit, I think you're exactly right. What moves me here is the fact that we're getting something from the property owner in
No, and that-
exchange. So that's kind of a mitigating factor to me.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think the elementary is being named after individuals. I don't think that's in policy. I think that's just the
No,
custom.
that's not in policy.
Yeah,
I
okay.
just say, personally, I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
because
misheard you.
They
Okay.
get to, learn about people who are important in our community.
The policy is educators. yeah.
The policy is educators.
Right.
If we're gonna name a school after a person,
I
it has to be
believe-
an educator.
I believe that's in the policy.
Not aware of that. Okay. Thank
I
you.
don't know if it is
Learned
in a
something new
policy.
today.
It is.
Clerk Weisman?
So, just to clarify a couple things to make sure we get this sequence correct. And board members, thank you for the discussion, because you'll recall that when we did the school that became Lake Manatee K-8, my comment was that the staff doesn't, that this is a board function and the staff doesn't put its thumb on anything. And so that's why we needed to have the discussion with all of you. Based on what I heard, then my plan would be to have Mr. Rinaldi, Mr. Henley, and the property seller to hopefully wrap up the amendment, get it through our process so that it could go on the consent agenda on February 11. And then pursuant to the policy regarding naming, we would prepare an action item designating that property as Rye Ranch Elementary, put that on the consent agenda, and then that would give the board the option to simultaneously approve both.
Right.
And then, in keeping with our practice procedure policy, if any one board member wants to pull anything off of consent and put it in new business for discussion, certainly that can still happen. But that's, I think, how we can accomplish what I just heard the board talk about, is the two simultaneous consent agenda items.
Okay.
And
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, no, the process, that sounds perfect. I'm just going to let you know now, I would ask that the naming part be put onto new business, because I think anytime we're putting a name on a school, we should at least acknowledge it, because the consent agenda, per Robert's rules, no discussion, no nothing, just vote and keep moving. So I think with the naming, we should do it during new business. It's just my opinion. I don't know if anybody feels strongly about it, but I just want to give you a heads up. If it's on consent, I will ask for it to be.
My only thought behind simultaneous approval is then you have clarity that the intention is to approve both.
do we-
I hear you. They're both going to get approved, I'm pretty sure. Just, two ways about going about, getting to the same destination. But just giving you a heads
I
up.
don't have a preference either way. And you
And
can put them both on new business with your approval. I mean, I don't have
I mean, we can put it on consent, and if you feel strongly about it, Mr. Kennedy, you could just pull it, and then we can, you know.
Well, that's what
He's
I'm
already
saying.
saying
I'm
he's
going
You're
to.
going to pull it.
I'm going to
If
ask
you're
them
going
to
to pull it, then
Yeah.
that's.
Put them both on there and
Okay.
not go.
Okay.
I just, for the record, again, I've always been about naming schools for regions. If you want to name a specific building or something else after someone, I've been here and I've said no every time. Because to me, it's the region, it's the building. If they want to do a recognition of a hallway, whatever, that's up to the school. But to me, I've never been a big fan of naming schools after individuals. You never know, I mean, if they're gone and been gone forever, that's one thing, but especially those that are still living, I would never go for that. Just because you
No.
weren't on the
Gotcha.
board then, so.
No, I agree with not necessarily naming a thing after anybody who's living,
There
but
you go, okay.
some of the names that came up when it was Lake Manatee were people who've been gone a very long time.
Right, right.
We're on the records.
I just want to make sure. I'm on the
Yeah,
record.
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation.
Yep. And thank you for all the hard work you do on that project.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Much
Thank
needed,
you.
much needed. All right, moving on to item number 4, board discussion regarding proclamations. Mr. Tatum, I'm gonna
Sure.
hand it over to you.
Sure.
This is your item.
Sure. So I've become a little bit concerned lately after watching some of the other boards in the county and then even around the state and even around the country and reading some news articles that proclamations that are being done about certain things they kind of delve into the political realm to some degree. And so I just think that maybe we should come up with a policy that says we don't do proclamations, because it might be one day that, it hasn't happened yet, but the day might come where some of us want this one, but some of us don't like that one, and then we get into viewpoint discrimination, and maybe Mr. Dye can address that a little later about, well, we did it for this group, but we didn't do it for that group, and we have to vote on these things. And to kind of keep the political neutrality here on the school board, I just would like to have a policy that we just don't do proclamations, because I just think that keeps us as apolitical as possible and keeps us away from having any types of issues with viewpoint discrimination. So that's my proposal.
Thank you. I did see recently that the county's kind of changing their proclamation, routine under the new chair, not doing so many, only doing 3. Which then that comes to me like, well, which 3 are you choosing to be the important
Right.
ones to do and then not do, whatever. So, so I do agree with you. My question to do no proclamation whatsoever. That's our policy, to not do proclamations. I would say there has to be some kind of out, though, in case there's something legislatively, government-wide, you know what I mean? Like, if the governor were to say, we're proclaiming this, I want all school boards, I want all counties to proclaim this, are we going to say to them, per policy, we don't do that? I'm not saying it's this governor, any governor.
Well, that's what I mean. Let's say a governor that some of us support and some of us don't support wants to make a proclamation about something, and then 2 of us on the board like that governor's proclamation, but 3 of us don't, or 3 of us do and 2 of us don't.
Sure.
That's how it starts to get political. So that's why I'm just saying that school boards are supposed to be apolitical, and there's no proclamations or no proclamations. I mean, again, like I said, this governor, we may like his proclamations, other governors we may not, and if we just stay out of that business, then we don't have to go down that road at all. And there are lots of counties around the state and even around the country that just have this policy just to stay out of that, what you just talked about, right, about trying to keep it as apolitical as possible.
Yeah. I just got back a couple months ago. Have we had an issue with proclamations being politicized, or?
No, but that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that it could come up, and there are some issues around the state and around the country where they have come up. They have to do with religion, they have to do with other aspects of the political discourse in the, you might say, in the state and in the country, and then just to avoid that, not have those proclamations come up, and then maybe some of us like them and some of us don't. We just don't do proclamations, or we do it for this group, and then another group comes. That's another problem that's gone on. If you look at viewpoint discrimination cases, they're out there. You do it for this group, and then another group comes in, and the organization or the board or whatever, the government entity says, we're not going to do it for that group, and then they file a lawsuit, and off to the races you go, you know, so just to avoid all that.
So we have not had, I mean, that I know of, but we only do like 3, right? Like we
Yeah.
don't do very many.
And it's like the same 3 every year.
And I don't think we have any policy over proclamation, meaning, I don't even know how they get, I mean, they get on the agenda just, obviously, as I've been chair, they're just on the agenda as we get there, right? So yeah, there's like not even any discussion at all.
Yeah.
So then my question behind it, you bring up a good point of like, the policy wise, like, who is choosing to do one or not one, or do we even know that there's being asked other proclamations and we just don't know because it's never been put on the agenda? I don't, I'm not saying that's happened at all, because I've never once heard of it, but I do think we need one, something.
So I looked into it. Mr. Tatum requested me to look into it, and, same thing. I didn't know any history on it. I couldn't find any mention in our policies about proclamations. I did an informal poll of the other school boards, and I did see kind of a trend that boards are moving away from them, and don't. Some have actually made a rule where they won't do them. For the kind of the reasons that are being expressed right now. From like a rules of order perspective, it is I think you're supposed to vote on them. It's a statement of a body. So they shouldn't just magically appear. As opposed to a resolution, which is agreeing to some action item. But they're kind of the same status, but except a proclamation is just making a statement that the body at least has a simple majority agree in whatever the statement is, right? The world is getting more political. I think we'd all agree with that, at least our world. And so, the concern is if you start getting proclamations that are political as compared to, let's say, educational, National Math Day or something, then it might bring out opposing views that want you to then do a counteracting proclamation. So I think that's kind of the concern, is it's using the board, groups using the board to get some statement out. Right. If I don't know if you need to ban them, but maybe there should be a policy that at least the board has a way of approving them, and if you don't think you've got support, they don't make it on the agenda, something like that.
Yeah.
But there may be thing you want to do a proclamation on, right? That most people would agree with, right? Especially if it's a pro-education, proclamation.
Yeah.
So
And I, go ahead. Well, I would just, as you were talking, just popped in my head, if there are proclamations education-wise that you want to do, we could do voting, and it kind of would create some kind of policy that you submit a proclamation X amount of days before you want it done, and then it comes to us as a board and say, not in a meeting, but it could be just as you're
At the
doing the
briefing.
briefing, hey, here's what, here's a proclamation, these proclamations came in, do you want to do them? And you'll know by the time we get done with our briefings whether it went or not. Let me go to
Oh,
Ms.
of
Felton
course,
real quick,
of
because
course,
she had her
yep,
hand up right
sure.
before you.
Of course.
So
that makes sense.
I don't agree with banning them completely. I think that there are times when we need to make acknowledgments of things that are going on in our state and our district as an educational level. All right, so it's Teacher Appreciation Week. It's National School Nurse month. You know, things like that where we make a point to recognize those people in some sort of a way through a proclamation. I think there is a place for those. So, you know, I'm not necessarily a fan of doing away with them altogether.
They think they're special.
I'm not sure if what you're looking at specifically, Mr. Tatum, if you're talking about, you know, you don't want to have a proclamation on, you know, it's Black History Month in February, which is recognized across the country. So I don't see that that's political because, and we also make an effort in our schools to focus on Black history in February. To look at all of these people of African American, Haitian, et cetera, descent who have brought great things to our country. And I think that is a benefit for everybody. So I'm not sure what specifically you are looking at, but I don't see how that would be a negative.
Well, what if we had a policy that said that we all 5 have to agree on it then, if it's going to be a proclamation from the board? Because of what I want to avoid then is that 4 of us agree on it, 3 of us agree on it, and then one of us says, well, I'm going to pull it, or I want to vote on it. And now we have to have this political discussion at a board meeting about are we going to do this proclamation? Are we not going to do this proclamation? What are the reasons why or why not? And if we all 5 agree on it, then we're like, yeah, it's just an educational type of thing. For instance, you can see at the county commission, they did a proclamation in support of Israel back in May, I think, and it was a 6-0 vote, right? And okay, that's fine. And
Well,
they're somewhat political because they're, you know, it's partisan. But the point is that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if we all agree on it, I would be okay with that if in our board briefings, but if someone says no, I feel that that's kind of a politically oriented topic, and I'd prefer, you know, not to have that as a proclamation and not have to discuss it at the board. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Well,
I'd be okay. Go ahead.
I don't see how Israel would have any bearing on education in Manatee County, so I would agree with that.
That's what I mean. If we all agree on it in our board briefing and then it's unanimous, that's fine. But again, there might be some that come up, and you never know what's going to come up. I mean, if you look at the like Mr. Dye said, they're coming up around the country, they're coming up around the state, and organizations are going and saying, would you do a proclamation for my organization? And it hasn't happened here yet, but I just think having a policy in place will help keep things stable and apolitical. And so that would be my proposition based on what I'm hearing, is if we all agreed on it and we all say, yep, it's not political, it's just an educational topic, fine. But if one of us doesn't agree on it, then we just don't do it.
I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
One thing real quick.
Yeah, I know you kind of got.
I do have to go, but I want to just, I think we're on the right idea here. I'm not sure I agree with, like, it's got to be 5-0, because there's nothing that this board does that has to be 5-0. But I think we're on the right track. It's a good discussion. It's good to think this through, because I think you're heading, I think what you're, I appreciate where you're trying to go. Let me put it that way. I'm not sure how we get there, but I appreciate where you're trying to go. I just want to leave you with this thought. The argument that you're making against proclamations could be the same argument to get rid of invocations, because there's 90-some% of proclamations are Christian-based, and we have people and employees in this district who are not Christian. And so as you were making your statements at the beginning, that kind of, you know, that's what I was hearing. Like, if we're going to get rid of proclamations, and I know this is probably a dead idea already, but like, maybe we should think about how we do invocations too. We don't have to workshop on it, but I'd like to see us, and we all have a chance to pick who does the invocation. So the board can provide diversity in the invocation through our selections, but if we're going to create a policy or something in black and white, I think it would, just my take, I think it would apply to that too. So, just a thought.
Okay. My input on proclamations, and I've been involved in a lot of them. After they're read, they're gone. They're just put into record. Some might value them more than others, but I'm on the mindset of we need to be very careful what proclamations we allow to come before us. And maybe not a 5-0, but at least the majority. If the majority doesn't like that, I would not want to see it on the agenda. Yeah, fair enough?
The problem with that is that, I'll be honest with you, if I don't like one, I'm gonna ask for it to be discussed, and I'm gonna give you my reasons why, and this is why I think that's what I want to avoid. Like, if we can all five agree that it's not political,
I'm saying on a briefing level, not the board level, a briefing level.
Right, but what he's saying is like, at the briefing level, all five,
See you, Charlie.
even at the briefing level, if he gets 3 members to say yes, 2 members to say no, that's a majority, right? But what Mr. Tatum, I think, is trying to avoid is I mean, I'm putting words in your
no,
mouth.
you got it.
But he's trying to avoid it being, well, us 3 want this and these 2 don't. And again, it's just bringing, I do think the majority of this discussion is not to bring issues that don't need to be, like, we're about education, etc. I'd be okay with either. I'd be okay with 5-0.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
I'm
we're
okay.
just discussing this. I think, can we do this? Can we have the attorneys, or Mr. Dye, maybe, and Mr. Chapman,
Mr.
I'm looking at him, he's like,
Chapman.
I knew it. Policy, to maybe find something in another district, and we then tweak that, you know what I mean?
There are some districts that have policies. I haven't looked at them, but
On proclamation.
And then when we do can we put it in, I don't know when we do
A policy
policies
change?
next. I know we do policies soon, but
We have a laundry list coming up.
yeah, I know we've got a list coming, I just don't remember when.
We're possibly going to bring a policy package for preliminary approval at the February 11th board meeting to be workshopped perhaps on the 14th or maybe on the 28th of February.
Okay. Because my question, and this is probably the attorneys, if we do want a policy, let's just say hypothetically, we created one right now, verbiage. What's the process to get, don't we have to do 30 days,
You have to
get public comment, you gotta do a
advertise.
hearing, a public hearing and everything to adopt that policy?
Has to be published.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And so we're already doing that with a set? Can we do it with that set?
Yeah, the question is though, are we gonna continue to, because it seems like we have a consensus that we're concerned about our proclamations, so should we just stop doing them until we get the policy in place?
I'm okay with starting the policy now. I mean, without it being necessarily a quote unquote in policy, we just do what we're doing, and in briefing say yes or no. But I guess my question is, do you want 3-2 majority or do you want 5-0? I mean, I don't know. Thoughts on that from legal? I think from a 3-2 or 5-0. I mean, I don't know.
There is precedent in policy to require certain things to be a supermajority, which in your case
Sure.
would be 4 to 1.
hard to achieve
Okay.
unanimous in any setting.
Right.
I'll just make my point, I think they should be unanimous, because one of us will not like it and maybe want to pull it. And if we're gonna do a proclamation with representing the whole board, it would just be a shame to have someone like a 4 to 1 vote or something like that, and then you have to have a political discussion on the dais about it, and that's what I'm really trying to avoid. I think if we all agree on it, great, but there might be one show up one day where someone's like, I don't agree with that, and then we have to have a discussion and it goes down the political road. If they're non-controversial, there shouldn't be any reason why 5 of us aren't gonna, if it's for math appreciation month or something, okay, but none of us are probably gonna have a problem with that. It's these ones that are quasi-political or outright political, but that's my point. I've made my point. I think it should be unanimous so we don't go there at all.
Okay. Any other discussion? I mean, so I guess my question is, one, if we do create a policy for it, we're gonna touch base on this anyways, another workshop with the other policies. So, I think verbiage could be discussed once we have that, right? to your question of what do we do now moving forward until we get that policy done,
I'd say none.
I'd say none.
I don't have a preference. I really don't. It really doesn't bother me either way. So,
Right.
I mean, I'll go the majority. And I guess my concern is there is no action here. I'll go back to legal again. This is a workshop, so there's no
Right.
action.
Right.
I don't know if can we even do this. What we're doing.
You can't take action today. You cannot.
But we can provide guidance to
Yes.
the superintendent that we would prefer not to do any more policies, and please develop a policy on that.
Any more
Proclamation.
proclamations?
Proclamations, yeah, proclamations, and please develop,
I'm all in favor of not doing any policies. That's,
makes your job easy. That's what I mean, is that provide direction, we'd prefer no more proclamations for now, and please develop the policy as we discussed.
Right.
Just provide him that direction.
That's what you want. If we can do that in a workshop,
Yeah.
No,
that's what I'm saying. I think we've got to do that.
but you're giving
in a
him,
meeting.
you're giving the superintendent feedback right now.
Direction.
Right.
So-
We're just giving him direction.
Yeah,
But we're gonna have to wait till an actual meeting to where we
Right.
give that direction,
right.
which is an action.
But I think he may hesitate to bring any more before you until a policy is reviewed,
Okay.
after hearing your sentiments.
Okay.
That's what we have in, that's what happens with every workshop.
I
We
don't.
give him feedback so he knows what, I mean,
Yeah.
just the last agenda item.
We obviously
That's
don't
what
have
we
any.
did.
We don't have a consensus.
Consensus.
I think on like
Yeah.
whether we want a 5-0 majority, supermajority, whatever.
Right, but that can
Um,
be talked about as the policy goes
But that can be
forward.
talked about as the policies develop.
Right.
Yeah.
So was our consensus then that for now we put policies on hold until,
That would be making a decision, though.
well, but what I don't understand is we just had a consensus that we wanted the contract or whatever separated out. I don't understand how providing guidance
And consensus
on
of
that
this either.
is any different than what we just did. We just,
Yeah, I think there's gonna be like Mr. Dye said. I think his guidance. The guidance is potentially not to do it on the board item.
right, that's just guidance we,
That we don't have policy.
We're not
We want to
setting a-
create one.
right.
And he may or may not do a proclamation because of that.
Right now, you have an informal process going on,
Oh, yeah, there's nothing.
and
Right,
the superintendent, after hearing your sentiment and knowing that you want to look into actually having a policy, may want to refrain from advancing any proclamations in this period.
thank you.
So he's
Cleaning
kind
it
of, he's the gatekeeper, from what I understand.
Policy 0165.1 says the superintendent shall establish the agenda for school board meetings in consultation with the board chairman.
up. There you go.
That's all we got.
So that's what the policy says, and so yes, I'm just listening for signal from my board.
I
Good.
think you got a pretty good signal, didn't you? Should have.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Any other further discussion? All right. Good workshop. Good Friday. Everybody have a good weekend. Stay warm.
Don't forget the fair.
Already
Yeah.
went.
Take your planes
Saw the
and cover your
goats.
planes with sheets.
Did that already, too.
We are adjourned.